Varys understood from the very beginning that Petyr Baelish was not merely a clever opportunist, but a man who thrived on chaos as both shield and weapon. Rather than confronting him directly, Varys chose a subtler path, one rooted in observation, patience, and manipulation of perception. He allowed Littlefinger to believe that he was always one step ahead, feeding his ego just enough to keep him predictable. This was the first move in a long, quiet game where information mattered more than swords. What made Varys particularly effective was his network of informants, which extended into places most powerful men ignored. Children, servants, and the overlooked corners of court life all fed him truths that Littlefinger assumed were invisible. While Baelish relied on calculated risks and bold schemes, Varys relied on certainty. He did not act until he understood the full shape of the board, and by the time he moved, it was often too late for his opponent to respond. Instead of undermining Littlefinger openly, Varys allowed him to succeed in small ways. Each victory reinforced Baelish's belief that he was untouchable, that his rise was inevitable. Varys recognized that pride would eventually become Littlefinger's greatest vulnerability. By carefully choosing when not to interfere, he helped construct the illusion that Baelish was in control, when in reality he was being guided into increasingly dangerous territory. Varys also mastered the art of selective truth. When he spoke, he often revealed just enough to appear honest, while concealing his deeper intentions. In conversations with Littlefinger, he never lied outright, but he shaped the narrative in ways that encouraged Baelish to act in predictable patterns. This psychological pressure was far more effective than direct opposition, as it led Littlefinger to make choices that ultimately served Varys's long-term goals. Another key element of Varys' strategy was his understanding of power beyond titles and wealth. He knew that influence could be shifted quietly, through alliances and whispers rather than proclamations. While Littlefinger focused on climbing the visible ladder of power, Varys operated in the shadows, ensuring that the structure itself could be altered. This difference in philosophy created a gap that Varys exploited repeatedly. Varys also recognized that Littlefinger's greatest strength, his adaptability, could be turned against him. By introducing uncertainty into Baelish's plans, he forced him to constantly adjust, increasing the likelihood of miscalculation. Each adjustment required new risks, and each risk brought Littlefinger closer to exposure. Varys did not need to defeat him outright. He only needed to make the game unstable enough for Baelish to falter. Timing was another crucial advantage. Varys never rushed his moves, understanding that patience was often more powerful than action. He waited for moments when Littlefinger was stretched thin, juggling multiple schemes at once. In those moments, even a small disruption could have cascading effects, unraveling carefully constructed plans. This precision made Varys's interventions feel almost invisible, yet devastating. Perhaps most importantly, Varys understood the importance of narrative. He shaped how others perceived Littlefinger, subtly influencing opinions without drawing attention to himself. By allowing suspicion to grow in the right places, he weakened Baelish's position without ever making a direct accusation. This approach ensured that when Littlefinger eventually fell, it would seem like the natural consequence of his own actions. Varys also maintained emotional distance, something Littlefinger struggled with despite his outward composure. Baelish's ambitions were deeply personal, driven by past grievances and desires. Varys, on the other hand, framed his actions as serving a greater good, which allowed him to make colder, more calculated decisions. This difference gave him a strategic edge, as he was less likely to be blinded by emotion. In the end, Varys did not need to destroy Littlefinger directly. By shaping the environment around him, he ensured that Baelish's own methods would lead to his downfall. It was a victory not a force, but a foresight, a demonstration that the most effective way to defeat a master manipulator is not to outfight him, but to outthink him in ways he never sees coming. At the core of Varys's approach was a belief that power is an illusion sustained by collective agreement. He often emphasized that a king's authority exists only because people believe in it. This philosophy extended to his dealings with Littlefinger, as he understood that undermining belief could be more effective than confronting power directly. By shifting perceptions, he could alter reality itself. Varys operated with a long-term vision that set him apart from most players in the political arena. While others sought immediate gains, He focused on stability and the eventual outcome of the realm. This perspective allowed him to endure short-term losses without compromising his ultimate objectives. Against someone like Littlefinger, who thrived on rapid advancement, this patience became a decisive advantage. Another pillar of Varys' philosophy was the value of anonymity. He deliberately avoided becoming the center of attention, understanding that visibility attracts threats. By remaining in the background, he could influence events without being seen as a direct participant. This invisibility made it difficult for Littlefinger to target him, as there was no clear point of attack. Varys also believed in the power of information as currency. Unlike gold or titles, information could be traded, withheld, or manipulated in countless ways. He treated secrets as both weapons and shields, using them to protect himself while exposing others when necessary. In contrast, Littlefinger often used information more aggressively, which increased the risk of backlash. Trust in Varys' world was a carefully managed illusion. He cultivated relationships that appeared genuine but were always grounded in strategy. With Littlefinger, this meant maintaining a balance between cooperation and rivalry. By never fully committing to either side, Varys ensured that he retained flexibility in his actions. He also embraced the idea that chaos, while dangerous, could be guided. Unlike Littlefinger, who sought to create chaos for personal gain, Varys aimed to contain and direct it. This distinction shaped their conflict, as Varys worked to minimize damage while still achieving his goals. It was a more controlled, deliberate use of disorder. Varys' moral framework, though often questioned, played a role in his decisions. He justified his actions as necessary for the greater good, which gave him a sense of purpose beyond personal ambition. This belief allowed him to remain consistent, even when faced with difficult choices. Littlefinger, lacking such a framework, was more prone to contradictions. Another aspect of his philosophy was adaptability without impulsiveness. Varys could change course when needed, but he did so based on careful analysis rather than instinct. This measured approach reduced the likelihood of error, especially in a game where a single mistake could be fatal. It also made his moves harder to predict. He understood that fear and loyalty are intertwined, and he used both sparingly. Instead of ruling through intimidation, he inspired a form of quiet allegiance among those who worked for him. This loyalty was more durable, as it was not solely based on fear of punishment. It gave him a stable foundation that Littlefinger often lacked. Ultimately, Varys' philosophy was about control through subtlety. He did not seek to dominate the board in obvious ways, but to shape it so that outcomes aligned with his intentions. In playing Littlefinger, this approach proved decisive. It demonstrated that true mastery lies not in making the loudest moves, but in ensuring that every move, seen or unseen, leads exactly where you want it to go.